Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mythic, bringing you guys a guest today. We got Donnie Druin. Welcome to the channel. This is his first appearance, man. Appreciate you hopping on the channel. How is it going?
Good, man. Good. Training camp, it's almost over. We got the preseason coming up this weekend, and football season's here, man. After such long months of basically nothing to talk about and report on, we finally got X's and O's and a lot of training camp action. I've seen you at practices a couple times, so
Yes,
it's
sir.
so exciting, man. It really, really is.
It's about time, man. I know a lot of you guys are excited. I'm excited. He's excited. If you guys want to go follow him, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Donnie Jr. You can follow the work at si.com/NFL/Cardinals.
Go ahead and check him out. He has Cardinals content, fantastic content as well. So go ahead and drop my boy a follow as well. But let's go ahead and talk about the Cardinals, man, because this training camp, it feels electric. It feels like the vibes are high. And I've noticed that this defense, it looks completely different than last year and years prior. This 2025 defense, especially the defensive line, looks to be incredible. What are you seeing out of training camp so far, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I'm seeing exactly what you and I'm assuming everybody else is seeing it. I remember they made all of those additions to the defensive side of the ball over the offseason, basically at all three levels. And you know as well as anybody, the team can look good on paper, and then whenever it comes time to actually put the pads on, it looks a little bit different. And I remember the first day of pads where they actually got to start hitting, got to start to being physical. They stopped everything the Cardinals offense tried to do. I'll never shake that feeling of walking back up to the press box thinking, "Oh my God, like this defense looks legit." Like all three levels, like stopping the run, stopping the pass, like the defensive line, the secondary, like everything about this defense looks legit. There's still some question marks at inside linebacker next to Mack Wilson, but I think we'll get some answers sooner or later, whenever preseason starts to actually get going. But this defense looks good enough to maybe carry the Cardinals to a couple of wins this year, and I don't think that's been the case here for a pretty much a while, the last couple of years that I can remember. So Will Johnson is popping off, Darius Robinson is popping off, and it's just I think it's really, really exciting. And I think you're right, my man. There's a buzz around this team, and there's genuine excitement for what the Cardinals can be in 2025. And I think that's just expectations finally coming through. We've seen what the team has looked like under Jonathan Gannon the last 2 years, and they made all of the moves they did in the offseason. Now it's kind of like, okay, like this team looks good enough to compete. Narrowly missed the playoffs last year, only got better over the offseason. So now it's time to show up.
And I can't wait for it. You mentioned two names, Darius Robinson and Will Johnson. Will Johnson has looked incredible in camp, and Darius Robinson, if you just watch him walk around, the muscle's apparent. You can tell he's added 20 pounds. And Will Johnson, it just looks like he is calm, composed, playing disciplined. Everything that you saw at Michigan is translating into training camp. Are you seeing the same thing? And what are your thoughts on those two guys in particular?
Yeah, saying the exact same thing. I think the patience and the IQ, whenever you combine that with the length and the ball hawking ability that Will Johnson has, I mean that's flashed already in training camp, and I'm very excited to see what that looks like against guys who aren't wearing Cardinals helmets. And the proof is in the pudding. And I think he's still a rookie cornerback, and maybe we need to temper expectations a little bit. But when you look at what he's being asked to do right now and the limited reps that we can see, where he's able to go 100% against the starters, I mean he looks good. He looks physical. Guys aren't blowing past him. He's reading quarterbacks very, very well. Everything that you saw out of Michigan, it's translating. It's translating. It's very, very early. I don't want to put any damning expectations on him or anything like that. But what we've seen from Will Johnson, how did he slide to the second round? I get the knee injury. I get
Crazy.
the concerns. I get the long-term concerns with that. Obviously, there's a reason why 32 teams didn't take him in the first round, but as of right now, August 4th, he's looking like one of the steals of the draft. And flipping that over to Darius Robinson, he looked very, very good in training camp last year before that calf injury kind of put him out of business for a little bit. You were really hoping that that wouldn't impact him heading into his sophomore season. It clearly hasn't. He still looks as strong, if not stronger, and it's quick off of the ball. Like he's a people mover. I'll never forget watching him push Paris Johnson Jr. back like a shopping cart
Yeah.
during training camp, and I'm like, that's not normal. Like that is not what like a capable human being is supposed to look like. He looks superhuman. Everybody sees the memes of him looking all jacked next to Jonathan Gannon. It's really nice seeing the steps from year one to year two kind of take off. Robinson looks great. Will Johnson looks great. Like a lot of the young guys the Cardinals are banking on to have big years in 2025 in order to reach the postseason. So far, so good on doing their part.
I agree 100%. The defensive line looks beefy, like absolutely massive, which is huge because this is a unit where Jonathan Gannon is instilling toughness. That is the whole motto of this team, is playing tough physical football, which is a complete changed from the Cliff Kingsbury era of the air raid pretty boy football. It is completely different. We're playing smash mouth. James Conner's embodying that. This offensive line is embodying that. And speaking of offensive line, Paris Johnson looks absolutely phenomenal. Also, people are concerned about the right guard position, saying it is a massive question mark, but everything we've heard about Isaiah Adams has been positive. All the reps I'm seeing him in one-on-one drills with defensive linemen, Darius Robinson, Calais Campbell, he actually stuffed into the ground, which is in one of my training camp videos. He won, I believe, 2 reps back-to-back against Calais Campbell. It was not close. Darius Robinson, he's winning reps. Do you think the right guard position is a concern? You even have AQ Shipley hopping on Pat McAfee talking about he thinks the Cardinals will have a top 10 offensive line unit. Or do you think AQ's on it? Do you think AQ is nailing that top 10 projection? Or do you think we're going to struggle and that right guard is a problem? Me personally, I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit in the middle, man. I'm not quite ready to place this in as a top 10 line in the league, but also I don't really have any concerns. And that's coming from somebody who did have concerns in the offseason. I wasn't Isaiah Adams' biggest fan last year. I really, really wanted them to bring Will Hernandez back into the fold. I still think that's a possibility now that he is physically cleared to play football again. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up coming back to the desert, so long as the money's right and Will is maybe comfortable with taking like a backup gig. But Isaiah Adams, for all intents and purposes, has impressed teammates. He's impressed coaches. Jonathan Gannon raved about him in one of his latest press conferences. So it's normally a good thing whenever you don't hear your name called as an offensive lineman. But whenever you do, whenever you're getting praise from guys like Darius Robinson saying he strapped him up twice during practice, and just all the other beefy defensive linemen that you had highlighted saying, hey, man, like this guy looks good. He looks legit. I don't think Isaiah Adams is an all-pro. I don't think he's a pro bowler, but I do think he's going to be good enough to steady the ship. So I'm not 100% confident in Isaiah Adams. I still want to see it. I still want to see him prove himself against legitimate competition starting wise week after week after week. But I really do like what I've seen in training camp so far from him.
I would agree 100%. I think the line definitely has a lot of strides. Paris Johnson looks just technical. He looks a lot better as well. He just continues to take the leaps every single year, and that's what you love to see. A guy who was thrown in at right tackle to go play left tackle, the position that he was drafted to play, and he's just not missing a beat. But we got somebody who needs protection, and that is quarterback Kyler Murray. How do you think that connection is going to look between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. this year? Because he looks insane in training camp as well. It's like all the guys that you need to take leaps look like they're bound to take a leap. Do you think Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison will get it this year in 2025? And how are your expectations looking like for Kyler Murray as well? Because a lot of the fan base is split as always.
Yeah, Kyler's got to be the most polarizing dude I've ever covered, man. Like truly, like there's no middle ground whenever you talk about Kyler. People either love him or people hate him. Like it's surely been something to see, at least on like the media perspective side of it. As far as my expectations for him and Marv, I do think that connection is going to get better. But I think a lot of that is because of the work that Marvin Harrison Jr. has put in over the offseason. Everybody knows he bulked up. But the thing that's impressed me the most is I remember we talked to him a little bit earlier during OTAs, and he was asked what he tried to like own in and improve on heading into 2025. And he brought up how whenever he was watching film, he was watching where defenders were attacking him at certain points in the route and where they were relative to him both before and after the catch. And I thought, what attention to detail that is. Like you can tell he's the son of a NFL Hall of Fame receiver. Like it was like he was built in the lab to play in the NFL, to be a wideout. And I know a lot of the expectations around him were quote unquote disappointing given the year he had in retrospect and relative to guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. But I think he had a fine rookie season given everything that happened and that didn't happen. But 2025 looks to be year. You've seen it in training camp, Justin. I mean, he looks phenomenal. He's catching everything coming his way. He's making catches outside of his normal catch radius. I mean, he looks very, very much like the guy the Cardinals wanted him to coming out of Ohio State last year as a number 4 overall pick. I still do kind of have my reservations about that connection between him and Kyler because there's still like a handful of missed plays, a handful of missed opportunities that I've seen from the two. I don't know if that's just shaking the rust off. I don't know if it's Kyler's just missing the target. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm not willing to pound the table on a 1,500-yard year for Marvin Harrison Jr. yet. I do think it gets better. I do think Marv has a very, very good second season in the NFL. I think that connection between him and Kyler is going to carry on, but I'm not ready to put it yet in the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase category.
I wouldn't say they're even close to that category yet because that's a connection that is dating back to LSU. That connection on point. I couldn't even imagine if Joe Burrow was playing with Justin Jefferson, who I think is the best receiver in football. That would be absolutely insane. But I do think that connection does take a leap. I think Kyler Murray does elevate his play because I think he had a fine year last year. It wasn't anything spectacular towards the back end. Again, another second half collapse, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But Marvin Harrison Jr., like you're saying, has done everything in his power to get better. He is insanely smart, insanely talented. He's putting the work in on the film and on the field. He's always catching jugs outside of practice every single day for the majority of it. Marvin Harrison Jr. stays after practice, puts the work in. He wants to be great. You can tell the Hall of Fame genes have been translated. And everything we saw at Ohio State, this is probably one of the best prospects I have seen at the receiver position. We're going to have another freak coming in next year potentially with Jeremiah Smith. But, like, there's just so many talented prospects, and we landed him at number 4. And regardless if Kyler's the answer or not from 2025 on, Marvin Harrison Jr. will 100% be that wide receiver 1, and I'm glad that he is an Arizona Cardinal. Now, speaking of second half struggles, this schedule in the beginning of the year, I feel like, is relatively easy. The Cardinals always start on fire. But in that second half, for whatever reason it is, whether it's Kyler Murray, under his tenure so far as the Cardinals quarterback, it has been the Kyler Murray Cardinals that always collapse in the second half. With the schedule we're given, do you think this Cardinals defense is able to help carry some wins in the back end? Do you think Kyler steps his game up? How do you think the season overall will go? You can even drop some record predictions. And how do you think that second half is going to look?
Yeah, I think 10 wins would kind of be the sweet spot for this Cardinals team. I'm not ready to kind of put them in that 12-win category like some fans are highlighting or projecting. But also, I don't think they're going to take a step back either. You know, I think for a team that doubled their win total from 2023 to 2024, they narrowly missed the playoffs. They seemingly only got better over the offseason, and they're really hoping that continuity on the offensive side of the ball can carry over and take them to new levels. So I'm not exactly holding my breath on that, but I do like what they did on the defensive side of the ball more than anything else, my man, just because like Kyler Murray's not going to have to play hero ball as much. And I think a lot of the mistakes we saw from Kyler last year was him in late game scenarios trying to make something happen for his team in order to go get a win. I mean, 8 interceptions the last 7 weeks of the season. I feel like a lot of those came in crunch time or in like gotta have it scenarios or downs. And I think with the bolstered defensive side of the ball, you mix that in with maybe Kyler being a little bit more consistent, because that's always been the knock at him. We've seen the talent. We've seen the ability to make any throw on the field. Obviously, everybody knows how athletic he is. But if he could just kind of like calm the highs and lows and get a little bit more consistent, I think that on top of the much improved defense, that should translate to a lot more success, especially like the second half of the schedule, like you were alluding to. I mean, there's going to be a lot of tough teams down that stretch. A lot of that quote unquote December football to where you're going to have to earn some really, really tough, ugly wins. And I think the Cardinals are a lot more well-equipped to handle that as opposed to last year's team.
I agree 100%. So if it's not the second half collapse, what is your biggest concern going into 2025? Because whether it's inside linebacker, right guard, Kyler Murray, everybody has something that they are concerned about. And I'm sure that stays true with you. So what's your biggest concern going into 2025, whether that's position or just overall standpoint of the team?
Yeah, I think I was pretty vocal over the offseason of them not really changing anything with the offense, at least personnel wise. And not that the offense was bad by any means necessary. I mean, I think they finished 12th or at least like near top 10 in a lot of the metrics whenever it came to like offensive production. So certainly like not bad by any stretch of imagination, but like I really feel like if you were serious about a playoff push, something would have been done, something would have changed over the course of the offseason, whether that was improving the offensive line, whether that was getting Kyler Murray another weapon to target that wasn't named Zay Jones or Greg Dortch or whoever it might be. They really didn't do anything to kind of appease a lot of people. Now, granted, they're not supposed to. Like they don't listen to people like me and you get on YouTube or write articles and say, "Oh, okay, well, like Mythic said this and Donnie says this. Maybe we should go get Keenan Allen,
go get Terry McLaurin or Keenan
right?
Allen.
Yeah. Go get somebody. Like I'm sure they look at a lot of stuff we put out and laugh, right? But also, I just think if you didn't do anything to change personnel wise, why should I expect a much better product on the field? And I think a lot of times last year, the Cardinals did struggle offensively. That offense under Drew Petzing is not built to come from behind. It's not built to play catch up. Now, granted, when they're in the lead, when they're up by 10 in the third quarter, they can play their brand of football. hand the ball off to James Conner 30 times a game. Now we're talking. That's
Yes.
exactly what the Cardinals love to do. That's what they're built for. But how many times did we see, especially the second half of the year, to where the Cardinals needed a gotta have it drive, and for whatever reason, their offensive weapons just weren't able to pull it out. Now, granted, will a improved Marvin Harrison Jr. fix a lot of that? Maybe. Will more continuity and familiarity and Kyler Murray's understanding of Drew Petzing's offense and his receivers with Dortch, Jones, McBride, Michael Wilson, like all of those, will that improve? It should. But will it improve substantially enough to where the offense will undoubtedly be better in 2025? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And that's probably my biggest drawback with this team heading into this year.
Yeah, it's tough because they're banking on continuity. And for you and I, we saw that offense in games where we needed it, or games that should have been competitive that just got out of the way very early, like Green Bay. Didn't really have a chance in that one. The Lions game, offense just could never get it going. And in the Seattle game, I don't remember. It was the game where
I
Kyler
mean,
had the
even
touchdown.
whenever Washington was in here and Cliff Dog walked them in their
Yeah.
own backyard, you know?
Yeah, it's just absolutely embarrassing. But that Seattle game really kind of opened my eyes because that's Drew Petzing really trying to unlock the passing playbook against Seattle the second time, where Kyler Murray starts with a touchdown to Michael Wilson, then Kyler has back-to-back picks, and it's the Arizona Cardinals in a nutshell. You just can't have it all. It's something
So
has to go wrong at all times.
I will say, man, like that was Drew Petzing's first full year with Kyler Murray. We heard from Jonathan Gannon. They like rebuilt the playbooks. They tore it down and built it back up with some of the things they liked and maybe added some things that they wish they would have last year. So like maybe that does change. Maybe it doesn't. I think, to be honest, I think the Will Johnson pick changed a lot of what they wanted to do in the draft. I don't think they expected Will Johnson to be there
Mm-mm.
at pick number 47, and I definitely think a receiver might have been in play for round 2 or round 3. But when a guy like that falls, you can't say no to him.
Yeah,
So
when you got Will Johnson falling in your lap, someone like Cody Simon falling in your lap, it's just like it's hard to not go defense. And Walter Nolan was
even Walter Nolan's, a lot of people
insanely
thought he was going to be
high
a
on
top
him
10
too.
pick.
Yeah, everyone
Yeah.
was saying he's going to be top 10. Now, at the time, as the prospect of Walter Nolan, I think his ceiling is absolutely insane. I think he could be a Hall of Fame talent kind of player. But I think his floor is also insanely low. He's one of those players where it's like I think he's going to be like top 8 in the league at his position, or he's just not going to pan out. I don't think he's ever just going to have one of those like solid careers. Like Walter Nolan on tape is just super disruptive. There's a lot of things that you love about him, but there's things that you need him to clean up. But even in his like introductory press conference, I believe he like addressed some of the things that he needed to clean up. And him and Jonathan Gannon already had these discussions. So it's like these are the things you like to see from your
Yeah,
first
yeah,
and
yeah.
second draft pick.
It,
They're just ready to go, hyped up. Will Johnson has that chip on his shoulder too, which is beautiful. Love that.
Oh, I loved it. So after each draft pick is announced, roughly like 10 minutes later, media get to hop on like a conference call with the guy who got selected, and just over and over again, man, he was like, "I can't believe I fell." He was like, "I'm gonna prove them right." He's like, "I don't know why I fell, but like the Cardinals, they got somebody who's extremely motivated, and I'm looking to prove 31 other teams wrong." And I'm just like, yeah, they messed up. Whoever decided to say that like his knee had long term problems, like they goofed. They goofed because
They
the
goofed
Cardinals are
hard.
getting a guy with a massive chip on his shoulder. And the thing with Walter Nolan, the concern with him was like his work ethic. He didn't love football. And then the very first thing Jonathan Gannon says to us after they drafted it was, "This guy loves football." And it's like, all right,
Yeah.
man. Well, like
The narratives
the
are just
Cardinals have been
wrong.
very clear and concise on the type of character they're bringing into the building, and I feel like they do more homework than anybody on just the person rather than the player. So if they're that confident in Walter Nolan's work ethic and in his love and passion for the game, then you kind of have to be by association at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they were quick to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins and Isaiah Simmons, who were deemed cornerstones of this franchise, and they got rid of them really quick and just embraced a full turnaround rebuild. So if there was any legitimacy to Walter Nolan's work ethic, him walking out of practice, him giving up on plays, they wouldn't have taken him. Will Johnson, if they didn't deem him worth first of all, I had him as a top 15 player in this draft. I was ready for the Cardinals to take him at pick 16. He was there in
Same.
my lap, and I was like, there it is. There it is. And then Walter Nolan, I was just iffy about it. But then I'm like, I'm fully bought in. Like, I'm fully bought into this Jonathan Gannon Monty regime. Like, I'm going to let this thing go. And then he falls into the second round, and I'm just absolutely dumbfounded. I thought we were going to have to trade up. No, he fell to 47. Pick 47. a guy I had a top 15 grade on. I don't know who did that, but getting that little insight right there fires me up so much about Will Johnson even more. And just what you're seeing in training camp, it's mind boggling. It's absolutely mind
Yeah,
boggling.
it's mind-boggling in the good way, but I also like I keep saying this, but like I'm not willing to put like Super Bowl expectations on this team because it's so easy to love these guys in training camp and preseason before like they actually get against like stellar competition. So as long as they can just stay healthy through preseason, I'm really excited for them. But like how many times do we see teams with high expectations just kind of fall on their face? And like not that the
Absolutely.
Cardinals do have high expectations because it still feels like nobody in the national media is talking about them. But you know, it really feels like only locally, like everybody's like, oh, like Cardinals can't make the playoffs, man. Like
Right.
they can win the division. And like outside of the state of Arizona, people are just like, like Kyler Murray is still there. Who cares? You know,
Right.
like the narratives around the team nationally are still kind of the same as they were under Cliff. But I think if anybody, man, like Jonathan Gannon's the guy to turn things around. And it's super exciting to see what can become of this team in 2025.
And I like that we're low key. I'd rather have it that way than getting blasted by the national media, have the expectations, and fall flat on your face. I think our projected line is 8.5 wins this season. I think 10 is where we should be shooting for. If we can get 10 wins, I would say it's a successful season. That's where I have us projected at is 10-7. That second half of the schedule is a little tough, but I think the Cardinals do end up closing it out and getting to 10. That Rams game in week 18 could be very pivotal. We'll see what happens. But I think it's the Rams or the Cardinals division to win.
You know, you can tell me any of the four teams will finish in any order, and I would believe it. Like this NFC West division is so tough. I feel like top to bottom, and there's reasons why every team can and probably should win it, right? I mean, the Rams, 10-7, they won the division. Seems like they only got better over the offseason. Seattle finished at 10-7, tied with them last year, and nobody's really talking about them. But I will say I am not a Sam Darnold guy,
I'm not
and
either.
I'm not holding my breath on what's going to happen in Seattle, especially after losing guys like DK and Tyler Lockett. And I know they got Cooper Kupp. I know they tried to reload it as best as possible, and their defense is pretty good. So we'll see with them, and then it feels like you could talk to 10 different people about the Niners and get 10 different opinions on them and what to expect out of them in 2025. I'm hesitant on them. I'm not holding my breath on the Niners return. I personally think their Super Bowl window is closed.
Yeah, the only thing really going for them right now is their easy schedule. Like outside of the schedule that they got, like that team is not the same team
Well,
whatsoever, and
I
they're
think
only
Robert
getting older
Saleh being
too.
added back. Yeah, they're getting older. They lost a bunch of people over the offseason. Like, I think Robert Saleh is one of the best defensive coordinators in football. So, like, do have that going for them. And if, like, Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, which, like, as a fantasy owner, like, that'd be really cool. But, like, outside of him, man, like, there's a lot of question marks in San Francisco that need to be answered, which isn't something they've had to do in the last couple of years under Kyle Shanahan, man.
Yeah, it is not the same San Fran team, man. If Christian McCaffrey comes back, I can 100% understand all the expectations. We've seen him lead that Carolina offense,
Yeah.
the 49ers offense. When he came in here, they were undefeated for a stretch, like 8-0. McCaffrey's a game changer, but is he going to be the same after having that little Achilles problem? Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? As a fantasy owner, I did trade for Christian McCaffrey, so I'm praying that he kind of does pan out. Maybe not against the Cardinals, but just like overall for the whole season,
2 weeks a year. Other than that, you can
right?
go
You can
off.
ball
Yeah.
out, go crazy. But I'm really hoping that the Cardinals can really take advantage of this. And speaking of, you mentioned Drew Petzing and that continuity. I've noticed there's a lot more motion in this offense. It seems like every other play or every play has some type of motion, some move around. You see Marvin Harrison lining up in the slot on the outside. There's a lot of people moving around, a lot of different pieces. Do you really buy into the Jonathan Gannon deconstructing all of the playbooks and just adding all brand new things? Or do you think it was kind of a stretch? Because I think he kind of really did kind of tear it down because this offense, there's a lot more motion, which I am a huge fan of.
Yeah, I don't know if I completely buy the whole like tear it down thing because a lot of the same like principles are there in terms of what the Cardinals want to do. Like they're going to run the football, they're going to run it a lot, they're going to hand the ball off. And when you look at Drew Petzing and what he does, coming from that like Kevin Stefanski coaching tree, like they run the ball, they scheme the run very well. That's not going to change. That's not going to go anywhere. I just think a lot of different wrinkles have been thrown into the offense. And I think having one full year of Kyler and Kyler's input into the offense, what he likes, what he doesn't like out of the playbook now that he's had one season fully playing under Petzing, I think that does change the offense and maybe a lot of the things that we like to see. Like you point out, Marvin Harrison Jr. being a guy that they put in motion, not having him kind of just on an island standing still for, at the X receiver spot. But a lot of different motion, a lot of like eye candy for the defense to try to decipher and kind of unravel. And then we've seen like Greg Dortch uses as more of like a gadgety role kind of guy. So I do like a lot of the different wrinkles they have, a lot of the different looks and stuff. Is it completely different night and day? I don't think so. Is it new and improved? I think I would tend to agree with that, though.
I would agree for sure. It's definitely same principle. We want to run the football. And speaking of running the football, how do you think the split's going to look with James Conner and Trey Benson? Because I predict that Trey Benson will take that leap. I think he was the best running back in the class last year. Jonathan Gannon recently came out and said that there's a reason we took this guy. He looks great. James Conner said him and I are both running back one. He's going to get some more workload. What do you think the split's going to be? I'm leaning more like 70, 67, 30, 33, somewhere in that range. I think Trey Benson will always come in as that like second down back, James Conner first and third. And that's typically how they'll rock it, just like they did last year. But Trey Benson, if he can take that step, which he looks better than he did in training camp, if he takes that leap like he was looking like he was going to do in the back end of the season, hitting gaps hard, running explosive, I think we're in a good position. What do you think the split's like, and what do you expect from our running back core in 2025?
Yeah, I still think James Conner is going to be that lead guy, at least for the first part of the season. I think they're really confident in what Trey Benson can do, but I mean, like Conner, I think is still undoubtedly the guy. I don't think anybody's like playing that down at all. But it does feel like even like Trey Benson, like Conner, like you said, even Gannon was just like, hey, like we have two starting running backs. Like we are going to use them. We're going to deploy them. And I think as James Conner starts to get a little bit older, maybe it's a little bit wiser to scale the workload back just a little bit. And like you pointed out, I mean, Benson was a home run hitter at Florida State. He was a second running back off of the board in his draft class. And he struggled a little bit out of the gate, but I think he finally learned for the game to slow down, for him to just hit the hole and take what the defense gave him. And even in training camp, like you don't get to see a lot of running back highlights from training camp just because like they're not really allowed to like hit him. But like Benson, he looks pretty quick. He looks pretty explosive coming off of those one cut runs. And I do think he's going to earn more opportunity. I think if you gave me a split, probably like 60-40 Conner, and then like I can be swayed either way on that, at least to start the year. I think it all really depends on how Conner looks health wise moving into like the mid-season for him. Like the running back room, I feel like is pretty solid, man. Like you have Amari DiMercado there is like RB3, that they love him and pass pro and as the kind of like a special teams guy. Obviously the run against the Chicago Bears right before halftime last year sticks everybody's heads. Yeah. And honestly, like not a lot of people talk about Michael Carter. I think he's still a very, very good running back. I do think he's going to fall victim to final roster cuts again, and I think they'll bring him back on the practice squad. But I think Carter's solid as a running back, man. So like I think
yeah, it's tough with
it
DJ
is.
Dallas because DJ Dallas got signed with a 3-year contract. They're here for special teams, so it's like a tough spot because if you part ways with him, which I think Michael Carter is better, especially in the receiving game too. I think he's a dual threat, kind of like that Chase Edmond kind of role. I think he thrives in it, but it's tough with DJ Dallas on that roster bubble. I think you're right with the practice squad.
So a lot of tough decisions, man. It's funny because Gannon told us last week, he's like, I'm not in the business of cutting good football players, but unfortunately, man, like when you build the roster like you do and you draft and develop well, like that's just part of the business to where you are going to have to make some very tough decisions whenever it comes to keeping a certain amount of guys in the room and really trying to like formid that final 53 roster that you're going to have to carry until the year. And then you get into the guessing game of, okay, well, if we cut this guy, is he going to clear waivers? Does somebody else really, really want him? Are we willing to risk this guy like having to go through all 31 other teams before bringing him back on the practice squad? So it's a lot of mental gymnastics. It's a lot of really, really tough number crunching and trying to fit pieces into the puzzle. But that running back room is pretty deep, man. It's top heavy in my opinion, but I still think running backs 3 through 5 are pretty solid.
I tend to agree 100%. I can't wait to see what Trey Benson has in 2025. I'm ready for the leap. I think we all are. It's year 2. It seems like a lot of young guys are just ready to take that next step. Darius Robinson, Marvin Harrison, Trey Benson, Mack Wilson, year 2 in this scheme has looked phenomenal. He is a game wrecker. He hits gaps hard. He makes plays. First time as a Mike linebacker. Let's just talk about Mack Wilson real quick. How do you feel about him getting the green dot and rolling with that? Because I know they said, the inside linebacker spot is still up in the air. You heard that quote, but I think we all know Mack Wilson is going to be that guy. Are you confident in him rocking green dot for 2025? Because
I
I'm feeling
am,
pretty
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I am confident in him. It's funny because I think it was Nick Rallis talking about how the Cardinals had a meeting where they discussed, okay, like who's going to get the green dot, like who do we feel comfortable with, and normally in defenses, man, like you want that linebacker to have that green dot just because the level of communication between him and the defensive line and him and the secondary is normally pretty fluid. Like he's the guy in the middle of it, he's able to organize everything. But with Mac not really having a ton of experience doing it, there is some hesitation with it. Rallis said he asked Mack Wilson if he was comfortable with it, and he was like, "Coach, I'll literally do anything you ask me to do. Just tell me, and I'll do it." And then he said that the communication has been flawless in training camp so far. He said that you can't really tell he's never done it before, which I think is a very, very good sign. And it's also interesting to note too that like a lot of the linebackers in camp, they do have the radio communication. So like if like not Mac, it would have been like somebody else because like all of the guys are getting reps doing that. But I mean, but I think Mac is more than equipped to not only handle the green dot duties, but to handle that spot that Kaiser White has left after playing here for 2 years, being that productive Mike linebacker and being able to stuff the run like he has. I think the only difference is that Mac is a much better athlete. And I think we've seen that time and time again in training camp where he's made some incredibly acrobatic plays, batting passes down, and really being that defensive anchor in the middle. So I don't really think they're going to treat him as like that, like rotating edge player, like inside linebacker. I think this year is going to be more of a full-time inside linebacker guy. I think a lot of the questions just come to the spot opposite of him. Like, is it going to be Akeem Davis Gaither? Is it going to be Cody Simon? Like, who's it going to be come week one? I think there's no questions about Mac, and I think he's looked phenomenal to be quite honest in training camp.
He really has. And even last training camp, it's like there's always a play every single day during training camp that he makes where you're just like, wow, oh my goodness. Whether it's a coverage play, him coming in behind the line of scrimmage and batting a ball from Kyler, always against first reps. And then the eye test backs up everything you see on film too in last year. And it just looks like he's ready to take another step and be that Mike linebacker that we need him to be. But I think he's better than Kazir White just overall. Like, I think he's going to bring so much more in the coverage game, in the athleticism department that Kazir White doesn't have. Now, Kazir White is kind of that impact player who's going to set the tone.
Kazir was a dog, man.
He
Like
is an absolute dog.
he's like team captain too. Like
he will rock
Kazir's
you.
crazy.
He will rock the absolute crap out of you. But Mack Wilson, I think, is ready to take it, and I'm so excited to see. And it seems like the team chemistry is also just continuing to trend up, which is beautiful. They're working in the offseason, on the field. Things are clicking, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Hopefully, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, everybody figures that out. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing going into preseason week one. The official or unofficial, technically, depth chart came out. Will Johnson listed as a starter. You like how the starters are looking, and what are your expectations for week one of preseason?
Yeah, and you have to throw this disclaimer out that like that depth chart can really change, and like that's not really made official like by the team, and like there's sure to be some guys in and out of the first team and the second team and everything like that. But I think especially with the two injuries to Sterling Thomas and Sean Murphy Bunting, like like Will Johnson absolutely should be a starter. If I had it my way, like in those both of those guys I previously mentioned were healthy, I think I would like ease Will in a little bit because I don't want to throw him to the fire, but he looks ready, man. Like, and anytime I think, oh, maybe like pull the reins back on Will Johnson a little bit, like he just makes a play. Like he's a playmaker, he's a ball hawk, and like we talked about previously, man, like he's everything he is promised himself to be so far. Does that change in preseason? We'll see. Does that change in regular season? We'll see. But I think right now he absolutely should be a starter.
100%. We got to temper the expectations because rookie corners typically struggle. But if Will Johnson comes in here and does ball out, I don't think it's going to shock either of us. Based on what we're seeing in training camp at all. It's not going to shock me whatsoever. But just knowing how rookie corners typically struggle in the beginning and kind of get comfortable and kind of ease their way into it, and you got to get those struggle reps down like Max Melton had last year, you got to have it. So
you need him, man. You need him. But like good for Willow because Jonathan Gannon, like defensive back is his baby position. Like he cares so much about that. He's been able, clearly as we've seen, the ability to develop a lot of like late round picks and undrafted guys. So it's really exciting to think what he can do with a player as talented as Will Johnson. Like to be honest, like Gannon loves him. Gannon absolutely loves Will Johnson, and rightfully so. I think he's incredibly excited to get his hands on him and just mold him to what could be a very, very good NFL corner.
Yeah, this could be a Pro Bowler. This could be a Pro Bowl corner.
Absolutely.
About right
absolutely.
Here, especially with the Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis coaching tree that we got going on here. I can't wait. Nick Rallis finally has his hands on weapons. That is going to be so exciting to see. I can't wait. But yeah, that's basically all we got. Actually, let's bring up one more thing, because there is very hot topics that surround whether the Arizona Cardinals, the NFL in general, Micah Parsons, trade request, Terry McLaurin, trade request. Do you want us to pounce on any of those? Because me personally, I'm content. If anybody, I'm more leaning towards Micah Parsons, but I think we're good. What's your stance on the whole trading aspect?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals and how they constructed their roster are more than okay chilling with what they have right now. And I think they're pretty confident in what they can do. They have cap space to do something. They have draft picks to do something. And like, to be honest, man, like, I'm pretty sure Monty's made calls, and like that's just him doing due diligence, just checking in. Hey, like, what's the price? Like, just let us know, and if it makes sense, then you never know. And like, people laugh at that, the whole like GM's doing their due diligence thing, but like that's how the Lakers got Luka Doncic. You know, like it takes one time for something crazy to happen, all because you made a phone call. And like we know Monty Austin is always willing to make a deal, whether it's trade or draft picks or whatever it might be. Do they need a guy like Micah Parsons or Terry McLaurin? I don't think so. Would they love to have either of those two? 100%. Would the money and draft capital needed to get them here make sense for Monty to say, okay, I think that's worth it? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think when you look at Terry, they already have a tough enough job getting guys outside of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball in their passing offense. I think Terry is a phenomenal receiver. He's had 5 consecutive 1,000-yard outings with me and you throwing him the football before Jane Daniels got there. So I think he's a phenomenal receiver. Obviously, I would love to see him in Arizona, but do they need him? Probably not. And then Micah, I think, makes definitely more sense. It kind of solves that like inside linebacker edge role, like 2 birds with 1 stone. And he's one of the few people you can honestly say is a legitimate game wrecker at the professional level. And I think that term gets thrown around a lot, but Micah Parsons is Hemi Turner for sure. But like he's going to want the largest non-quarterback contract. And it's like, okay, like, is he worth it? For sure. Should the Cardinals give him that at this point in time? Are they a Micah Parsons away from really being a Super Bowl contender? I don't know.
It's hard to say.
I don't know. So it is. And, you know, you're probably having to give up multiple first-round picks for him. Is that something Monty wants to do? Probably not. So it's fun to think about. It's fun to talk about for people like you and me. But, like, I think dialing it back to reality, I don't think any moves get done.
Yeah, like a first round and a second round at the minimum, and then throw in a $46 million price tag for multiple seasons is a tough stretch to get yourself to buy into. I'm not going to lie. But, like, for Dallas, you got to pay the guy. But for us, willing to move 2 first-round picks potentially and pay him, it's too much for me, man. It is way too much for me. I think we sit pat, rock with what we got, and I'm excited for 2025. Donnie, appreciate you hopping on, man. One more time, where can they find you at?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druin and follow to work at side.com/NFL/Cardinals.
Check him out. Let him know Mythic sent you, man. Appreciate you hopping on the channel, man. It has been your boy Mythic and Donnie, man. Peace out.